What if everything you learned about early human history is wrong? What if, before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, our world was ruled by a group of beings who lived for tens of thousands of years? This isn't a fantasy novel. It's what one of the oldest documents in the world, the Sumerian King List, claims as fact. This 4,000-year-old clay tablet, found in the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, lists 8 kings who descended from the sky and ruled Earth for a combined 241,200 years before a great flood wiped the slate clean. These aren't mythic poems, they are recorded as straight history. So who, or what, were these kings, and how could they have lived for so long? The most controversial ancient Sumerian text reveals the list of 8 ancient kings that are also known as gods, who descended from the sky and ruled for over 200,000 years. According to the text, before the Great Flood, a group of 8 intelligent beings ruled over Mesopotamia for a period of 200 years. The Sumerians were one of the ancient advanced civilizations that lived around 7,000 years ago in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which later became Babylonia and is now in Iraq and Syria. Many artifacts have been recovered from the ancient site of Sumerians in Iraq, but the most intriguing was the manuscript that recorded the listing of Sumer kings and their reign lengths. The clay tablet of this unique text is 4,000-year-old and was found by German-American scholar Hermann Hilprecht at the beginning of the 20th century. Hilprecht found at least 18 such cuneiform tablets, c. 2017-1794 BCE. They were not identical, but they shared the information that is believed to have been taken from a single source of Sumerian history. There are more than a dozen of copies of Sumerian King List found in Babylon, Susa, and Assyria, and the Royal Library of Nineveh from the 7th century BC. The list, composed in the Sumerian language, consists of the names of numerous generation kings who ruled ancient Mesopotamia and also shared the details of their supposed length and location of kingship. Along with the list, the text also included the events of the Great Flood, traditions, tales of Gilgamesh, and stories of antediluvian rulers. The Sumerian list, before the flood. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridug. In Eridug, Alulim became king. He ruled for 2,800 years. Alaljar ruled for 36,000 years. 2 kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. Then Eridug fell, and the kingship was taken to Bad Tibira. In Bad Tibira, Enmen-Luana ruled for 43,200 years. Enmen-Gal-Ana ruled for 28,800 years. Dumuzid the shepherd ruled for 36,000 years. 3 kings, they ruled for 10,800 years. Then Bad Tibira fell, and the kingship was taken to Larag. In Larag, Ensipad-Zid-Ana ruled for 20,800 years. 1 king, he ruled for 20,800 years. Then Larag fell, and the kingship was taken to Zimbir. In Zimbir, Enmen-Dur-Ana became king. He ruled for 21,000 years. 1 king, he ruled for 21,000 years. Then Zimbir fell, and the kingship was taken to Shurupag. In Shurupag, Ubaratutu became king. He ruled for 18,600 years. 1 king, he ruled for 18,600 years. In total, 5 cities, 8 kings, they ruled for 24,200 years. Then the flood swept over. How could the 8 kings rule the earth for 241,200 years? There was a great discussion on the long tenure of the early kings. The list mentions some mythical and legendary figures such as Etana, Lugalbanda, and Gilgamesh, who reigned for an implausible period of time. Some believe that they were indeed gods who had a longer lifespan than earthly beings. There is also a list of the rules and their kingship after the flood. For many years, people believed that the history of 8 Sumerian kings and their implausible kingship, the Great Flood, and their replacement with another set of kings after the flood were just Sumerians' interpretation of mythological stories. At the same time, some researchers and authors dismissed this theory and suggested that the list cannot be a myth. They started recognizing some of the kings mentioned in the list. Interestingly, some scholars found striking similarities between the Sumerian King List and the Book of Genesis. For example, likewise, the list discussed the 8 kings that ruled for generations. Before the flood, there is also mentioned about 8 generations that existed between Adam and Noah before the Great Destruction. And then after the flood, the longevity decreased. The Sumerian List mystery still baffles historians as it shares some perplexing facts that relate to the actual events. What if the list tells us the correct information and the heavenly gods really lived and ruled for such a long period of time? What if they possessed the technology to increase life expectancy and became immortal? The stone tablet and the cosmic clock, deciphering humanity's lost epoch. The Sumerian King List stands as one of the most tantalizing and profoundly disruptive documents to emerge from the dust of antiquity. It is not merely a record of rulers, it is a chronological bombshell, a stark ledger of years that challenges the very foundations of history, biology, and our understanding of human civilization. The simple, unadorned listing of 8 antediluvian kings who reigned for a collective 241,200 years is so audacious in its timescale that it has been largely dismissed as myth. Yet, to consign it entirely to the realm of fantasy is to ignore its meticulous, bureaucratic nature and the profound, unsettling questions it forces upon us. This clay tablet is not an epic poem of gods and monsters. It is a chronicle, and its greatest mystery is not the flood it describes, but the unimaginable expanse of time it claims preceded it. The immediate rational response is to seek a metaphorical or symbolic interpretation. Perhaps these vast reigns, 28,800, 36,000, 43,200 years, are not literal, but represent the longevity of dynasties, city-states, or even celestial cycles. The numbers themselves, divisible by the Sumerian base 60 mathematical system and echoing precessional cycles, suggest an astronomical or symbolic encoding of knowledge. In this view, the list is a form of sacred history, blending the reigns of actual chieftains with the symbolic dominance of their patron deities, compressing millennia of tribal memory and celestial observation into a divinely sanctioned genealogy. This is a comfortable explanation, one that allows us to appreciate the list's cultural significance without accepting its literal truth. However, this conventional interpretation feels inadequate when confronted with the list's stark, matter-of-fact delivery and its eerie parallels with other global traditions. The most striking correlation is with the Genesis genealogies from Adam to Noah, which, while presenting shorter lifespans, similarly depict a dramatic contraction of human longevity after a cataclysmic flood. This pattern, a golden age of immense lifespans followed by a precipitous decline, is a recurring motif in mythologies worldwide. The Sumerian King List provides the oldest and most numerically specific version of this story, suggesting it may be the source from which these other traditions sprang. This is not a coincidence. It is a cultural memory, a fragmented echo of a forgotten epoch in human history. This leads to the more radical, yet compelling possibility that the list is a literal, if imperfect, record of a time when the rulers of Mesopotamia were not entirely human. The phrase, "after the kingship descended from heaven," is the crucial key. If we interpret this not as poetic metaphor, but as a factual statement, the entire narrative transforms. These would not have been mortal kings, but beings of a different order, the Anunnaki of Sumerian lore, those who from heaven to earth came. Their immense lifespans become perfectly logical if they were visitors from a world with a different orbital period, a different relationship with time, or possessing a biology and technology far beyond our own. A reign of 36,000 years is impossible for a human, but it is a plausible tour of duty for an advanced administrator from a civilization capable of interstellar travel. In this framework, the King List is not a record of human monarchy, but a log of colonial governance. The successive shifts of kingship between cities like Eridu, Bad Tabira, and Larag reflect the rotation of command or the establishment of new operational headquarters for a vast, long-term project, most famously speculated to be the mining of gold and other resources. The implausibly long reigns are the actual tenures of these extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional overseers. The Great Flood, then, represents not just a planetary catastrophe, but a pivotal moment in this project, a reset that necessitated a change in management strategy. The post-Diluvian Sumerian kings, with their rapidly diminishing lifespans, could represent the first generations of genetically engineered hybrids, a blend of the gods and Homo erectus, created to serve as intermediaries and laborers, inheriting a fraction of their creator's longevity, which then degraded over successive generations. The biological implication is staggering. If we entertain the list's literal truth, it suggests that the human lifespan was once, or was intended to be, vastly longer. The rapid decline post-flood could be interpreted as the result of genetic dilution, environmental change, or the loss of a sustaining technology or knowledge. This directly challenges the Darwinian model of a slow, linear progression toward longer life. Instead, it posits a catastrophic fall from a potential grace, a devolution of our biological capacity, the quest for immortality that permeates the Epic of Gilgamesh. A king who appears later on the list is no longer a philosophical fantasy, but a racial memory of a lost biological birthright. Ultimately, the Sumerian King List forces us to confront the poverty of our historical imagination. We are conditioned to think of history in terms of mere millennia, of civilizations rising and falling over a few thousand years. The list calmly asserts that before the foundation of Egypt, before Stonehenge, before all that we call ancient history, there existed a coherent, organized society in Mesopotamia that endured for 250,000 years. This is not a missing chapter of history, it is a missing volume. Whether we view it as sacred allegory, misrecorded astronomy, or a literal chronicle of non-human rulers, the list's true power lies in its ability to shatter our temporal parochialism. It is a message in a clay bottle, washed up from the shores of a deep and forgotten time, telling us that our past is far longer, far stranger, and far more mysterious than we have ever dared to believe. The 8 kings, with their 200 years of rule, are a silent challenge, a riddle etched in cuneiform that asks us the most fundamental question: how long has intelligent life, in one form or another, truly been shaping this world? The answer, it seems, may be written in the stars and in the genes, waiting for us to become wise enough to read it. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.